You've just tuned in for the latest transmission of Rice Against the Grain. Today, I am joined by fellow content creator and researcher, Dr. Narco Longo from the YouTube channel Old World Florida. He has been on the show before, and I will include a link down below in the video description and above for his previous appearance. Today, we will continue going against the grain of what they have taught us to be history. Before we get into it, take time to visit my website at ricetvx.com. There you can sign up for my mailing list so you can stay up to date on all things Rice. Once you've signed up for my mailing list, you will find links for my channels and socials towards the top of the website. Make sure you are subscribed to both of my YouTube channels, Rice Against the Grain and Rice TVX. If you want to support my work directly, as well as get early access, exclusive content for both channels, plus more, join my Patreon. I also wanted to share that I have recently partnered up with ITM Trading. So if you want to schedule a gold and silver strategy call to build your wealth shield and support Rice TVX, be sure to use my specific landing page that you see on the screen, and I will also include custom Calendly links and an 800 number that you can utilize to schedule your strategy call with the ITM trading professionals. And again, it is a way to support Rice TVX. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything shared on today's video. Joining me on today's show is a returning guest. I am joined by the good doctor. He is the host of Old World Florida. I am joined by Dr. Narco Longo. What's going on, my friend?
How's it going, Chris? Thanks for having me.
It's going well, and I appreciate the conversation that we had before we started recording, kind of getting to know each other a little bit better. I appreciate you sharing that, and want to remind people, just in case they don't know, you have been on the show before. It was about a month ago. And I'll have a link down below for that conversation where we were talking about the Garden of Eden / Atlantis being in America, and an introduction to kind of who you are as a researcher, content creator. And then I'll have links for your YouTube channel, which, man, your subscriber numbers have picked up. I want to say since the tinfoil hat thing and since you released it, it looks like your channel's probably got, from what I remember, a good 8,000, 9,000 subscribers at least.
Yeah, so, who's keeping count?
Who's keeping count? But congratulations, man, on the growth, because I mean, I think you're putting out some great content. And again, I want people that aren't familiar with you, if they're enjoying this conversation, to make sure that they're checking out your work, supporting what you do. And if they do want to support what you do, you also have the Patreon channel as well that people can check out. So
yeah, that's all right. Don't feel the need to. It's okay. You're not going to get a lot in return.
Some people are going to want to support people. So I just try to put that information out there. So anyways, man, I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to digging into this. We're recording it on the 27th of February. Tonight, you're going to be premiering a video about the Greeks in Florida and I guess in America, kind of equating to the Cretes, the Crete Indians, the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about Native Americans in America, kind of a hidden history, alternative history to what we've been taught, and then talk about the Moors, and also the idea of the Gulf of Mexico being the Fertile Crescent. And again, this is a lot of stuff that you cover on your channel, but I want to kind of expand upon it a little bit.
Sure.
So, where do you want to begin with this?
Well, you know, the way that I start my presentation is, and the way that I'm surprised no one has ever really done this, is just analyzing the name Florida itself. You know, if you're going to start an investigation, why not start with the name of what you're investigating, right? So Florida, we're told, is named La Florida, right, for the Spanish Easter festival, or a festival leading up to Easter, Pascua Florida, which means flowery festival.
Okay.
Right? So they were landing in Florida around Easter time, springtime, and it was very flowery. And that's kind of how we're given the story, is that Juan Ponce de Leon said, "Ooh, it's flowery here." right? Or it's springtime and it's so nice, and it's Easter time, and okay, we're gonna name it Florida, and that's all good, and I don't think there's much issue to be had with that. It makes sense, but let's see what else we can find in the name of Florida, right? Flora is the name of a Greco-Roman goddess. Flora. This Flora is actually the goddess from which we get all root words floor, floral, fleur, like fluorescent, or a fleur de lis. You know the fleur de lis, right?
Right. So the Flora is a Greek goddess,
She's a Roman goddess,
Roman goddess.
she has a Greek equivalent under the name Chloris. So Chloris, it's like a little game of telephone, became Floris or Flora. So Chloris is Flora. And, these are also alchemical terms. Chloris, chlorine, chloride, flora, fluoride, right? And you also have, oh my God, my cat. But
Cats are always they do their own thing, man. So it's all good. I got a couple cats.
So Flora is a Roman goddess of springtime, flowers, of course. That's where the word Flora comes from. It's the Roman goddess Flora. Then you have, she's also the goddess of light, spring, Easter time, the spring equinox, all these things. And then you have Ida. Ida is a Greco-Roman, sorry, just Greek. She's just a Greek goddess. So she's named Ida in the Greek myth. And Ida is another spring goddess, light, life, fertility, springtime, like I said. But also, she's the mother of Minos and the nurse of Zeus, Jupiter. So she's the nurse, the caretaker of Zeus, of Jupiter, who's the primary central figure of all mythologies.
Okay.
It's Jupiter, Zeus, Arthur, same guy.
When you say Arthur, you're referring to King Arthur?
Yes, sir, with his 12 disciples and his 12 knights of the round table representing the 12 signs of the zodiac split.
Yeah. Same thing with the story of Jesus, Yeshua.
There
12
you
disciples.
Go. His 12 disciples
Very
on
much a parallel story to each other.
Yes, Jesus was on Mount Olive. Jupiter was on Mount Olympus with his 12 consorts. And yes, same story. They're lightning gods. So Peter, Jupiter, Jesus, Jesus, right? Zeus is Jesus. Well, it's right there. Jesus, Jupiter, Peter. Well, this is also, like I said, Arthur, but also Harry Potter. So Tor. This is Tor. Thursday, your third eye. This comes from the planet Jupiter. Christ, Jupiter, Zeus, same guy. This is why Harry Potter has his lightning bolt on his forehead, because it's the god of thunder and lightning.
Okay.
Being represented on the third eye chakra. That is where lightning strikes inside the body. That is where you get these flashes of genius, of power, of such. This is Thor. Thor lives right here. Thor lives
in your head,
in the pineal gland. Yeah, third eye. So that is why I forgot where we were going with that, but
it's all good. I mean, I figure we're gonna have tangents upon tangents. You were talking about we were mentioning, we kind of got off track comparing Yeshua to Arthur, and then
right.
Prior to that, you were talking about the word Florida and going through these various different god and goddesses.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So
do my best.
Manoah. As I said, Flora was either I need to check this so I don't sound like an idiot. Flora was either the god, the mother, as I believe I said initially, the mother or the daughter of Minos. Sorry, Ida, not Flora. But the point I'm also kind of making here is that Ida and Flora are the same goddess. So it's like it's redundant, so to speak. So she was the mother of Minos, yes. Ida was the mother of Minos. And why is this important? Because from the word Minos, you get the Minoans, right? The people who they worship a bull as well, like a minotaur,
Right.
minotaur, Minoans. Well, then you have your Menorcans, Minorca, who are culturally Greek island off of Spain. You had about 1,000 or so Greeks, Menorcans, 1,500 Greeks, Menorcans, Italians, Mediterraneans settling Florida in the 1700s. In 1765, New Smyrna, Florida was founded. New Smyrna, that means Smyrna is an ancient Greek city in Turkey, modern day Turkey.
Okay.
So New Smyrna means it's like New York. There was a New Smyrna in Florida in the 1700s. Why aren't we taught that in school? And that's mainstream history. It's just not talked about mainstream history.
Right. No, they want to make people be under the assumption that Columbus was the one that discovered, and there was nothing here except for a bunch of indigenous native people, that there was no advanced technology, no prior civilizations. And so that way it kind of didn't, I mean, even though I think we're kind of, the Europeans coming into America are being painted, it's hard not to look at them as bad guys coming in and slaughtering all these different people who called these lands their home just so that they could, in a sense, evict them and take over their home.
Now, there's truth to that, but why the Greek story is important is because you're going to see why do certain people, yes, certain people are escaping. Well, sorry, some people are just out for resources and looking for untapped resources to take from other people. And that may have been your initial American incursions. Well, then you have in the 1700s, and 1600s, you have large influxes of people escaping religious persecution, right? Whatever that means, whatever they're saying, they're very heavy on that in the mainstream history, right? Escaping religious persecution. Well, what does that mean? Let's take those Menorcans there, which are those people you're seeing right there depicted on the right.
Those are Menorcans?
Those are Menorcans in Florida. So in the 1700s, you had culturally Greek people. The vast majority of the European people in Florida were Greek because at the time of this, it was the largest European settlement at the time of its undertaking in the Americas. 1,500 people, 1,500. They call them Menorcans or Greeks generally, but in truth, there's a lot of they were Ottoman people.
Well, the Ottoman. I'm glad you mentioned that. So the Ottoman Empire, looking up information, it kind of talks about it being Turkish related.
Yes.
I've also equated the Moorish people with the Ottoman Empire as well. Would that be correct or incorrect?
It would be very correct, and I'll tell you why. If you've been looking at my channel, I keep talking about the Moors in Florida and all the Moorish architecture. There was a Moorish presence here that we're not being told about. Well, that extended into Mexico, and this entire Fertile Crescent area extends from the tip of Florida to the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Well, what if I told you that entire Mexican landmass? Do you know what their language group was called?
The Mexican landmass. And what
the Mesoamerican language groups. The main name for the Mesoamerican language group is Otomanguean.
Otomanguean.
So here, let's look at some maps. That'll be a good place to start.
Okay.
Right here, for example. Oh, very lucky that file was right there.
Maybe it was meant to be.
I promise I'm never this.
Organized.
Oh, no way.
No, I get it.
But this was right here, believe it or not. And right here we have language tree, a linguistic tree.
Okay.
And here we see
Yeah, thanks for making it bigger.
Mesoamerican language group, Ottomangan, Western Ottomangan, Eastern Ottomangan, Amuzgo. These are your Amazigh people from North Africa, and so on. Then you have your Chinantec, right? You can pick out a couple different.
They're saying that all these languages derive from the Ottomangan
Group, which is predominantly Mexico, and Mexico also in maps up until like the Civil War. I have seen a map. I don't have it, so I shouldn't even mention it. But I have a map. I've seen a map that has Mexico called the land of Shem. So Shem being a character of the Old Testament, Shem being the
one of the sons of Noah, one of the three sons.
Thank you. What was it? Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Right, and I think the Shem line the Ham line is what kind of seemed to be like going in more of a negative, evil direction, where Shem seemed to be carrying on the values of his father. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, it was Ham that was kicked out of their court because they don't really give an explanation, but he saw his father naked. So there's some assumption as to what all that meant. But again, this goes back to kind of what we were talking about in the first video. So I didn't ask you this. What is your theory about like what took place with the flood, the ark, where it started, where it landed?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the ark and kind of guide me back to that first question. I'm sure I'll forget. But the ark, all these things, excuse me, mister. Hey. So, Noah's Ark, I'm sure I've said this, I preface lots of what I say with this. There's always a transcendental interpretation. There's always an allegorical interpretation. So, yes, when Moses parted those seas, is that the truest sense of the story? That he quite literally parted seas? No, there must be an allegorical or a transcendental. However, the majority of the Bible, Old Testament, does have a plain as day literal interpretation. To discard those interpretations would be very foolish. Now, that being said, fools, if you're a fool, that's the only interpretation you have because you can't see past the literal.
Right.
So a lot of people think, ooh, I'm smart enough to understand allegory. I'm smart enough to understand symbolism. So let's just throw the literal interpretation out the window. I've came full circle, right? I've been there and said, oh, no, I'm an astrologer. And I've said, oh, no, it's all astrology. And there's truth to that. It is true. The Bible can be reduced to astrology, an astrotheological story, an opera almost, a theater. But on top of that, or beneath that, there is all the other threads remain true as well. So they don't negate each other. They just add an extra dimension to each other. So anytime you're analyzing the Garden of Eden, I can't tell you how many comments I have. Oh, this is preposterous. The Garden of Eden is inside you and we can all live in the Garden of Eden. And hey, I'm right there with you. I agree. There is a chemical process within the body that represents the 4 rivers of Eden or this and that. And so absolutely. But if we're going to interpret them literally, I will tell you, I'll have you know that when interpreted literally and wholly, the Old Testament, much of it occurred in the Americas. When the New Testament was being written, and it was written. It may have been compiled, but it was written in the late 1400s, 1500s, and really finished during the early 1600s. What do they say? King James Bible was 1611 or 1616.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Coinciding largely with the works of William Shakespeare. But
yeah, because there's question about Sir Francis Bacon.
Yeah,
and who was Shakespeare, and then who was commissioned by King James to write said Bible, and etc.
Oh yeah, I'm all into that stuff. I love
yeah,
that stuff.
I think anything that seems to go against what we've been taught that actually has some sort of evidence, like saying that there could be something to this, I'm interested, because obviously what we're taught is not correct, and just Columbus alone is a good way of showing people what we've been taught is bullshit.
Well, it's funny you bring up Columbus, because when Columbus came on his second or third voyage, he professed the lands he came across in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico to be the one and only promised land, paradise, Eden, right? So he said it in his own. Not only that, he had actually encountered evidence of African seafarers that had came before him. They had gold spear tips that could only have came from. There's gold in the Americas. That's not why. But the gold spear tips, an alloy that could only have came from Africa. So some of the first people he encountered had already encountered transatlantic Africans. But and that
So-
those. Or sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't know.
Okay, well, I was going to ask, the flood story, you take that literal.
Okay.
You take the flood story literal?
I mean, not only the flood. I mean, flood is democracy. Democracy is a flood. Rule by the many, rule by the stupid.
But the idea of this planet was covered in water, that the only people that could survive were inside of an ark that was built, like a literal boat.
Now that rendition of the story is a bit boiled down to its bare elements, because Christian mythology is kind of made for the stupid farmers, whereas Greek mythology is at least the form it comes down to us in is a little bit, has to be dissected a little more, whereas the Christian, they're kind of making fairy tales out of it, like Humpty Dumpty went up on the wall and fell down, being the lunar myth. This is there was many. Noah was a mission. Atlantis was a time period. You have and I know Atlantis isn't in the Bible, but what I'm saying is the Noah myth is a bare component, boiled down to its minimum components version of the Atlantis myth.
Okay.
The fall of Atlantis, the fall of man. Adam and Atlas are the same person.
Yeah, we talked kind of the idea that Atlantis and Garden of Eden are basically the same idea, concept, just given different names. So in this sense, I mean, do you think that there were multiple arcs? Do you think okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious, because ultimately what I'm trying to get at is, like, how do we go from the Mexico area, Central America, as being Mexo, and then you have this area over in the Middle East, the Sumeria area that they call Mesopotamia, which has very similar sounds phonetically to what you're saying it was in the Mexico area. So where does the connection come in?
The connection comes in that the names of the Gulf of Mexico and the people here and the landmarks were transferred to the eastern continents after a deluge. Now, a flood, I think we're actually kind of maxed out here on Earth today. We're actually at a pretty high water level. It's only hasn't gotten much higher than this. There's only so much water on the planet. And yes, God said it came from underneath and from above. That's another dead giveaway that the flood occurred if it was a flood was occurring in the southeast United States, where water easily pushes up from within the ground and
But considering that pretty much most, if not all, civilizations have a flood story,
Mhm.
whether it's a variation of, but there's a lot of similarities. So something happened.
Yes, and especially something happened. This may be describing a loss of land due to slow sea level rise. But the way that we in the West kind of tell the story is a sudden change, a sudden occurrence. And this, in my mind, in the Southeast United States, this cataclysm, and there's been floods, there's been many different things.
Comets potentially.
Destruction from the sky and destruction from air and water, and destruction by earth and water, and then destruction by air and fire as well. Just as Solon and Plato say that when the earth floods, it's the people on the mountaintops who survive. But it's the people on the mountaintops who are first scourged to death by the opposite of flood, which is death from above, which is solar flare, I don't believe in any of that science BS, but a solar flare, some type of event in the sky.
Even comets and meteors and stuff like that too.
Exactly. So that's your alternative. And Solon, through Plato or Socrates, in Plato's Republic, or not the Republic, right after the Republic, Timaeus or Critias, he says alternating methods of destruction, come onto the earth. And that way, it's almost like a checks and balances where no one civilization can just escape destruction forever, that it's alternating. However, places low and near the rivers are first to spring back in either scenario. Destruction by, so they'll be spared scourge from the heavens, but then you'll have after a flood, they'll be the first to bounce back. So places like Florida, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you how we get these myths going from one side of the Atlantic to the other. Tampa Bay, Florida, was the capital seaport of Atlantis. This is corroborated from the Christian point of view by the fact that Tallahassee area was the Garden of Eden in the eyes of Florida's 1936 Republican governor for candidate, E. Callaway. He professed Florida as the one and only Garden of Eden, promised land, paradise, all of it.
How far is Bristol from Tallahassee? Because there's all that claim of Bristol being.
That's Bristol. That is Bristol.
That is Bristol. Okay.
Yeah, they're right next door to each other.
All right. Curious. Sorry.
That's all right. I just say Tallahassee. It's more internationally known. Like I say, if I'm talking to someone from Scotland, I'll say I'm from Miami, right? It's the closest major city, right?
Right.
So Tallahassee is the closest major city to Bristol. The Apalachicola flows through right there by Bristol, leading up to a four-headed river system. Now, and I'm going to tell you how they were transferred, but this is important because this is another way to debunk the whole four rivers being allegorical or them being the Tigris, the Euphrates, and one, they tell us today, two of them are in Iraq, but then one of them's in Egypt and the other one's in India, or, they don't know where the other two rivers are. They just guess, and they might even be dried up. And the Tigris and the Euphrates, even those do not fit some of the historical requirements. But when you see the thing that everyone misses about the four rivers of Eden is that they are explicitly said to have come to a single head. So the Tigris and the Euphrates, okay, maybe those are considered coming to a single head because they're nearby. But the other two, where they place those today, are not anywhere near, not connected they could not even possibly come to a single head. Well, what if I told you that the only true four-headed river system on the planet, and I think I can pull this up to show you, the only four-headed river system on the planet where one river splits out into four equally is in Lake Seminole, Florida, Georgia. So it's the Florida-Georgia border right near Tallahassee, and it's Lake Seminole. So Lake Seminole has a four-headed river system where four rivers come to a single head, and there's a dam there, so they've dammed it so it looks a little bit different since the 30s or 50s or so, whenever they put that dam in. But you can still even see it today. Four-headed river system. And I'm trying to pull it up for you.
I got something that's from actual map. Hold on one sec. Does this help? I was trying to get this part off. Because there's Florida, Georgia, and there's like...
Oh, yeah, there it is. So those are your four rivers. So on the left there, you clearly see a big major river. On the far right there, you see a major river. Those two in the middle have been more well-defined in the past. So there you have your Tigris, Euphrates, Hiddekel, and... God damn it.
Well, they do talk about in prophecy, though, the Euphrates drying up. Now, I think the Euphrates over in the Middle East is that they call the Euphrates is drying up. Is what's referred to as the Euphrates in this four river system drying up?
Now that one, the one that your mouse is over, oh, sorry, that's my mouse. There's one of them that is dried up, largely. Not a major river as it was.
Is it the one that's called the Euphrates? Because that's what if the prophecy is specific and it's correct.
Let's look. Now I'm gonna come out and say that that's not that doesn't mean a hell of a lot to me. Of course it means something, but it's not gonna prove or refute anything in my mind. But let's look. Let me pull up my my screen.
Now, when you're talking about the Fertile Crescent, you're talking about where civilization started?
Civilization, yes. Now, originally, I believe all mankind to come from the North Pole. Black, white, yellow, brown, green.
Now, pause on that, because I do on a future conversation, I did watch your the documentary that you put together about Finland, and that was fascinating.
Oh, that's good stuff.
So yeah, so you're thinking more so that's where the origination came from, but
yes, that is
migrated to the Fertile Crescent area.
And I'll tell you why. The Gulf Stream goes from St. Petersburg in the Gulf of Finland, right? So St. Petersburg is Russia, right? But it's in the Baltic Sea or the Gulf of Finland. So they actually squeeze by Finland into the Gulf of Finland. The Gulf Stream, this life-giving stream of warm water that is mysterious, unexplained. They don't know the exact origin, where it comes from. They know that it comes from the Gulf of Mexico, that it emits from the Gulf of Mexico, the warm water. It's probably the same water that is being oozed out of the springs in Florida with such magnitude that these actually supply every ocean on the planet. This is the womb of the planet, is right here in the Gulf of Mexico. The amniotic fluids of the planet emit from the Gulf of Mexico. So that's a telling feature right there. Then you have the shape of the Fertile Crescent. And as I've pointed out, nowhere in the Middle East is fertile or crescent shaped, especially not both at the same time. Whereas the Gulf of Mexico fits both of those qualities better than any landmass on the planet by far. It is the most perfect crescent shaped. It is the most fertile, distinguishable area of land contained body of water on the planet. Subtropical, you don't want too tropical because that's too hot, too buggy, too this, too that. Subtropical is perfect. And we know, that's why they tell us, oh, back in Adam's time, it was subtropical. No, the Middle East is a desert. It is an arid, dry, hostile to human life desert. It always has been, always will be. So sure, jump in.
Well, but if you're saying you've kind of insinuated too that based off your research that the Helsinki area would be the original North Pole, and where the North Pole would have been is not standing straight because we're off axis. So if that
Yes,
took
sir.
place and the globe, the planet, the whatever people want to consider it, shifted, could that have changed environments? And then prior to, if you look from just the biblical story, it talks about, if I'm not mistaken, until the floods, or maybe it was before the fall in the garden, but the earth was supposed to be, the entirety of the earth was supposed to be perfect.
Yes.
So every place could have been the same climate, the same everything in that scenario too.
Yes. Now that timeline would be a little bit farther back, and that's the distinction to be made, is that mankind has came in many forms on this planet, many colors, many variations. But if we're talking humanity, and if we're talking humanity and human civilization after the recent ice age, then
Nice.
yeah,
Somebody screeched.
yeah, then we are talking about Florida, because 7,000 years ago, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, that whole area was largely desert as well. It was just the river valleys that were so well irrigated that they were able to, not synthetically, because it's not entirely synthetic, but artificially propagate that whole landmass, to irrigate that whole landmass and make it subtropical, because it has the heat. It has the heat, especially in Egypt. They have a similar temperature, but the humidity is off. The whole Mediterranean is arid and dry. It's not the humidity you find in Florida.
Right.
What are the two prerequisites to life?
Water and air.
Moisture and warmth. Warmth and moisture. Okay. Those are the defining characteristics over living things and non-living things. Living things produce their own warmth. Not always, but they contain their own warmth. And that is almost as a life. When something ceases to live, it ceases to produce warmth. So also humidity is the same way. Death can be viewed as a drying and cooling process. And that life, your creation of a human child, happens in what? A pile of wet soup, in hot soup in your mother's, stomach.
Good way of putting it. Hot soup.
So when you come out, what happens to a fish when they come out of the ocean and they stay out of the ocean? They stink and they rot immediately, right?
Yeah, they die.
We all left in ocean. And since then, we dry out, and it might seem like some people, people might not think always in terms of temperature, but old people are cooler. If you ever touched old flesh, it's almost always cooler.
Yeah, I agree. It's like their body temperature has gone down.
Less blood flow, less vitality, whatever it is.
Less energy in them.
There you go. So
like their battery's dying.
You need the perfect conditions. If you're looking at life did not originate in Florida, but you could make a good argument for that. But what we're talking about is human civilization after the recent ice age. Well, the Fertile Crescent, and we can pull up some stuff.
So, with the last conversation, when we talked, you were kind of giving the idea, from what I gather, is that the ark was built, an ark was built in that vicinity that we were just sharing in the Florida-Georgia line, Arkansas. We talked about some etymology when it came to that. If there was one boat, or there was multiple boats, how do we get to the whole Middle Eastern, Mesopotamia, Sumeria, and then Meso, whatever. What's the correct terminology for what they call Mexico? That area?
Just Mexico, Mesoamerica.
Mesoamerica. So where do we?
Yeah.
Where does the word Meso and where's the connection for Mesopotamia and
Sure.
Mesoamerica?
Okay. Well, let's look right at the word. Meso is found on both sides of the Atlantic. They tell us that it means middle or like medium, like Medi-American, Mesoamerican. It means in the middle. Well, I'm not so sure about that because Meso is Mejo or Mexo, right? And then you also have Mississippi. So Missy means is the same root word. All the way up to Michigan, you have the same root word, meaning the same thing in Creek-related languages. Muskogee, Michigan, Mascogos. You have Mississippi, like I said, and Mexico, Mexico with a J with an X, doesn't matter. And I'll show you well, let's start with Mesopotamia. The word Mesopotamia. We talked about Meso a little bit. Why would Mesopotamia be in the wrong place? Well, maybe because Potamia is an American word. Potamia.
Potamia is like some native.
It is
word.
Creek. It's Creek. Cherokee and Creek.
So is it related to Potomac?
Exactly. There you go. Potomac. Potama.
I grew up near the Potomac.
Well, wonderful. Potoma is the same in both languages, ancient Greek and modern Greek, and Native American languages, right? Washington, we're told, a lot of people mistakenly think Washington crossed the Potomac. He didn't. He crossed the Delaware, but the Potomac was right there too. So the Potomac, one of the most famous American rivers in colonial times, has the same root word and meaning as the Greek word potami, meaning water or river, like hippopotamus. Hippopotamus means river horse or river creature, river horse.
Water horse.
Potamus, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So Mesopotamia is an American word to start off with. Potamia is a American word, as is Meso. So Mesopotamia is the Fertile Crescent. Well, why is it that Mexico has a Fertile Crescent and Mesopotamia has none? But I'll explain how they got mixed over. Tampa Bay was the capital seaport of Atlantis. Always was, right?
Okay.
From there, it's no coincidence, you have the largest amount of ancient stone anchors of Atlantis, Saxor stones, all across the Tampa Bay area, up with the highest concentrations in Pinellas and Pasco County. So just north, but still considered Tampa Bay.
Tampa, okay.
In Tampa Bay area, you have the most anchors all the way up to Tallahassee, which is where you have the wood that Noah's Ark was being constructed out of, the gopher wood. Let me see if I can find some good. Well, I've got a map that I can show you after I explain this. A cool map, good visual.
And also let people know they can watch your videos, like the Saxor Stone documentary. Kind of goes deep into this as well.
Yes,
Saxor saga.
Saxor stones are the ancient anchors of Atlantis. They're all over Tampa Bay. Well, then E. Calloway, who was the Christian guy in our 1936 Republican candidate for governor, E. Calloway, 1936 declared Florida to be the Garden of Eden. He was using the wood in that area, and he said he recognized that it was gopher wood. Well, in the Old Testament, what does God tell Noah to build the ark out of? Gopher wood. Gopher, the word gopher is never used in the Hebrew language again. Right. And it is only used in that one instance in the Old Testament. So that sounds to me like an American word that they, you lose the source of this wood. Why would you ever use the word again? So gopher, the word gopher stayed in America. or at least in the name of this wood. So he found the wood that it had been constructed out of, and dare I say, I'm the only person that has pieced together. John Saxer has the ancient stone anchors of Atlantis, and then E. Calloway has the wood that Noah's Ark was built out of. So if you have your wood for giant ships, and this is one of the most buoyant woods on the planet, it's lighter than balsa. It's less dense than balsa wood, and he found petrified logs that had been sawed clean, petrified.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
So he found the wood. Then you've got the anchors. Well, now let's just zoom out for a sec. You have the largest maritime empire in the history of mankind, stationed off the west coast of Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico area, going up into the Mississippi, which was the lifeline of America, right? The lifeblood, the major artery. So the Mississippi dumps out into the Gulf of Mexico, and these ark ships, as ships used to be called, arks. These are ancient ark ships were either docked off the west coast of Florida or en route to their destinations along the Mississippi, or they were crossing the Atlantic. Well, something happened in the Gulf of Mexico. It very well may have been the Chicxulub crater. If you want to search up the Chicxulub crater, I don't have a picture on hand.
Let me pull up something, and you tell me how to spell that insanely crazy word that you just mentioned.
It's Chix, CIHX,
CIAX.
CHIX.
CHIX. Go ahead, keep going.
CULUB. And I honestly probably spelled it wrong too. So
crater?
Yep.
Okay, so it's CH. Oh, that was really cool. Hold on, I gotta do a screen share because what it just did, but it's CHICXULUB crater.
Yeah.
But what the Google screen did, let me see if I can refresh this and see if it'll do it again.
Oh, it had the meteor go across, right?
Yeah. And then it impacted the screen. See the screen move?
Yes, sir.
That is pretty interesting. Okay,
now
so
they tell us this is the one that killed the dinosaurs. Now, I don't believe in dinosaurs, but it's interesting they tell us that is the one that got the job done and changed the face of the planet forever. Well, imagine
it happened right out the Gulf of Mexico or inside the water.
Inside the Gulf of Mexico. This may even be what broke the loop of the Gulf of Mexico. It may have been a perfect loop. It might have been a ring.
There may have been land here, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. It may have. But regardless,
would this be the keys right here where my mouse is? Can you see that?
Well, I don't know what that picture is right there, but if you look at the bottom right picture, so the crater came down at the top, the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. So, and when you see the whatever, doesn't matter.
No, I get what you're saying though, because it could have been like where, I don't know, this is Cuba or what.
That's
this
the Q.
is.
That the Gulf of Mexico is a Q, and the Cuba is the tail penetrating that Q is Cuba. So Cuba as the tail in the Q of the largest Q on the planet. And what is Q? Q is the letter representing fertility. Is it not? Fertility, Q represents the sperm going into the egg. This is the letter Q. It's also what you get if you have a hole and you make like a sex
innuendo, like you're talking
exactly
about. Like
exactly,
you guys are gonna go do it.
Exactly. So if you that is the letter Q as well, is it's a line entering a circle. It's a 1 entering a 0, right? And then getting it on. But it's the sperm fertilizing the egg ultimately. And here we have the most fertile area on the planet. with its Gulf Stream, the amniotic fluid of the planet, coming from this area. And it's no coincidence Florida looks like a phallus, as does the Yucatan Peninsula. Florida even looks like it's doing what phalluses do and ejaculating the Florida Keys out into the Gulf of Mexico.
Coming out of the tip.
Exactly. So there might be a little pareidolia there, but
now, where that red circle is that the Yucatan Peninsula?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to get some understanding of geography here.
That's all good. So that is where this meteor landed that supposedly killed the fake dinosaurs and changed the planet forever. But when that happened, now they're going to tell us that was like millions of years ago. Well, who knows? But and you know I've even heard people like Randall Carlson talking about part of this Younger Dryas thing is things landing in the Gulf of Mexico, things landing, in Haiti. Haiti has some of the most some of the most extraterrestrial minerals on the planet because of the amount of stuff that lands in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And when something comes down like that, it's not like a rifle. It's not like a perfect rifle. Many times it's more like a shotgun blast. So the Gulf of Mexico
kind of spreads out.
Yep. So you have let's just say you were in a giant ship and an asteroid came down in that bay in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, if you were docked close to land, you would be screwed. Okay. The boat would have nowhere to go. You would be crushed up onto the land. The boats would be spit up onto the land, right? Hurled up onto land, out of the water. And that's what you find. Why? Because all of these ancient stone anchors are exactly where they would be if a ship was anchored off the west coast of Florida. If a ship was docked off the west coast of Florida. So when you find the largest and oldest stone anchors on the planet in west coast of Florida, then you have the wood. That was one of the only woods light enough to be a candidate for Noah's Ark, the wood that Noah's Ark was made of. I think we should start paying attention. Now let's talk about how they made it from here to there. Well,
when you say from here to there, are you talking about from Florida, this area to the Mesopotamia, Sumeria area?
Yes, sir.
Because one thing is with science, I mean, we're not getting a lot of dates as far as some of the things that you're mentioning, whereas different sites over in that area like and Udik and things like that, if I'm saying it not right, and even Göbekli Tepe, they have dated these things, carbon dating. I don't know if that's the correct word or how they're dating it, but it goes back quite some time. So was it simultaneous that there were people in both areas? And then you got to understand how did they have that communication? Because there is obviously all this similarity. So there's something that a lot of things that we weren't taught correctly. And I guess my ultimate thing is why? What's the point? Like, what is the real agenda behind not sharing what actually took place on this in our history?
Well, I think you can boil it down to half malice and serving people who know, seeking to serve themselves instead of the people who don't know, right? And using that information to their own benefit. But you can also chalk it up to just sheer human nature and negligence, stupidity, ignorance. People forget, people don't value what should be valued, and information like that gets lost. But I tend to side more with the cover-up, right? Because you have the entire Mormon church largely agreeing with what I'm saying. There are different angles, different perspectives, nonetheless.
I'm trying to learn more about the Book of Mormon and the story, because they say they're not sure where it took place, but it took place somewhere in the Americas.
Right. So that's the crux of the Mormon religion that sets them apart is the fact that they believe much of the Old Testament to have occurred in the Americas. And hey, that's what people are kind of coming around to today online. It just doesn't have any of the religious packaging. So
Yeah.
people are waking up to this, and E. Calloway puts it perfectly. When the Bible was being translated, when the New Testament was being pieced together, when all these things were happening, they were unaware of the existence of the Western continents of the Americas. So how on earth could they have incorporated those into ancient doctrines that was telling them names of places, people, occurrences? If you are entirely unaware of an entire continent, of course you're not going to say, oh yeah, Moses went to a continent that we no longer know about and have forgotten where it is, but we're going to keep writing about it. Of course, at some point, you're going to take those names and put them in familiar land instead of.
Well, they're still doing that today. They're still trying to find historical places and things like that and claim this is where they were. I mean, I think we're not even really sure where Mount Sinai actually is.
Yes.
I think they claim that it might be in Egypt, but I don't know if that's actually where it is. And sometimes I'm curious if this is like the Roman Empire trying to make the Roman Empire look more successful and dominant than it was, because they were victors in history at some point. And it seems like the victors are able to write what we know as history, which is usually lies and bullshit mixed in with a little bit of truth.
Absolutely. And, the church wanted to, what happened, and, sorry, I'm dancing around a little, but why did all these religious groups leave Europe and just hightail it to America? What for? To just start from scratch and to live back in the Stone Age? Live in a pile of sticks, and maybe 20 years down the road, you might have a nice house.
Right, going from London to the woods.
Exactly. And these were deeply, deeply religious people. So are they just going out? Why not be a caveman at that point? If you're going to just drop everything, go to another continent just to live at half the quality of life you had wherever you were from. And another thing is, a lot of what we're told is religious freedom. People seeking religious freedom was actually Masonic freedom. And that's why you have Scottish colonies in Florida, Scottish colonies in Canada, Nova Scotia, right? Scots were not a colonial power. So what are they doing with all these colonies and these territories and settlements? And 1765, like I was talking about earlier, the Greeks in Florida. Well, who were the Greeks being overseen by? They indentured themselves into servitude just to come to Florida from Minorca, right? It's crazy. Well, then when they get here, they're under Scottish rule. And
in Florida?
In Florida, they're overseers, Greek colony. So 1,500 Greeks and Turks and Minorcans, and then Scottish overseers. So what the hell's going on here? Like what is this melting pot, and why aren't we taught it in the mainstream history? I think it has a lot more to do with religion and crypto Judaism. This is not your mainstream Judaism that you think of today, and it's not good or bad, or that's not what I'm trying to say either.
Crypto just means hidden or secret. So
exactly. So this is people who were not Christian, probably Jewish, or in many cases Muslim too, in Minorca. Minorca and Greece and Scotland are all famous for their crypto Jew history and their history of converted Jews coming into a new country or seeking asylum in a new country. Scotland is the only country that has never persecuted the Jews, ever. So the Jewish people fled to Scotland. And why do we have the Scottish and Greek and Menorcans linking up in the Americas? Probably has to do with some of that history right there. For example, Scots and Greeks both use bagpipes. Vests.
I didn't know Greeks used bagpipes. That's interesting.
Yes, sir. You have Macedonia, right? And Mykonos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's Macedonia and Mykonos. These are your Celtic.
Micmac. And we have is there not a native tribe called Micmacs or
sir.
Somewhere in Mexico?
In Maine, yeah, Micmacs.
Those Maine, okay.
They're closest to the Vikings and the Celts too, and the Basque. So yes, they have a large European contribution to their DNA. That's why. Have you ever seen the Micmac flag?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Here, you're gonna love it.
Is it something Viking related? I mean, I guess, yeah. It's me trying to interview you on this. It's like I'm not starting with the beginning. It's like going like kind of talking about the flood is kind of, I wouldn't say middle, but it's not the beginning. And then so you kind of refer back to Finland. We got to have a conversation where we're kind of going from. I would love to just kind of like have a long form conversation about just the entire history that you understand. From where it all started to where we are now, is best that you have put it together.
I mean, I can give that to you in 30 seconds. You can
give me the entire history of everything in 30 seconds. I'm okay. Come on, let's do this.
Okay. Oh, I don't know about that, but on this planet in paradise times, everything was subtropical. There was one family, no difference in skin color or language. You could go from Helsinki to Mogadishu and be treated like family because everyone looked like family. So that's a prerequisite to peace times in paradise, that everyone has to look like the same family. That's the condition we were put under in this new paradigm under the human race. What does human mean? It's hue, color, mankind, and race, rays of light, different colors of the rainbow, the spectrum colors.
Skittles.
So that's your colored people, different colors. We have white, black, red, brown, yellow, green. You have different colored people, and that's the conditions we've been put under. And this is why places like Helsinki and Finland and Atlantis are all covered up, because you have the true origin of the races. Now they want us all to mix into one irresponsibly. I am here to tell you today that we have all came from one race, and we need to go back to that one race responsibly, not just mixed in, because with race comes blood and genetics and your mitochondrial DNA. So when we, and I'm not anti-race mixing, but like I said, it has to be done responsibly, because you want the best attributes of both races to be brought out in this mixture. You don't want the worst of both races being brought about in a mixture of any mixture. You're making a pina colada. You don't want, you want.
Well, how do we go from this man or this individual, this people that everybody had a similarity, were more family, kind of the same skin color, I guess, and the same kind of general look. How do we go from that to human and having all the rays of color and all the various different types of man?
When the poles shifted a long time ago, farther back than humanity can remember. But before then, you had subtropical climate across the entire planet. You also did not have such differences in elevation on the planet. And in this time, the whole planet was subtropical. Mango, banana, coconut flourished on every inch of this planet. They'll even tell you this in the fossil record, in the archaeological record. They just put it back 60 million gazillion years ago and say, oh, this is the Jurassic period and everything was dinosaurs and there was no such thing as humans.
And our
That's
forefathers would have been vegetarians in this time period. We didn't partake in meats and things like
oh,
that, right?
absolutely. No, alcohol and meat had never even been thought of, dreamt of to eat flesh. No way. And this was the proper time to do so, because that's why people have such an issue going vegetarian today, is because the conditions are not favorable to do so. It's doable. You can be healthy, but there is a bit of a disadvantage, and it's not because of our organism. It's not because of the inability of the food. It's due to the atmospheric conditions. The air is not as nourishing as it once was. The energy in the air is not as the energy field in the atmosphere is not as dense as it once was. So it's because of that that man largely relies off of food for sustenance and his energy, whereas man, being separate from the rest of the animal kingdom, what makes him special is his ability to take in energy from other sources than food. So that's where we've kind of gone wrong so recently. But there's many wrong, not wrong, because every step along the way is part of the story, but how we got here and how we've lost so much. Well, another part of it is the military system. There was once a life-giving system on this planet, life-creating. And this is probably the largest reason that none of this is told or talked about. Because today, the planets, the places, the countries of this earth are so preoccupied with killing. And I'm not a pacifist, so I'm not one of these, lefty, softies where I think everyone should. I think there's a time and a place to kill, even. So what I'm saying is, well, you could be walking down a street, right, down your downtown area tonight, tomorrow, Saturday. You could be walking down this downtown area, down a street. And if you were walking by a sports bar and you saw violence on the TV, a shootout, a fight, fist fight, blood, bare knuckle fighting, any amount of violence you could really think of being depicted on a movie, a TV, all these things, you could walk by that TV and not even bat an eye. You would not even pull your attention away, because we've been so desensitized. And I mean desensitized. People throw that word around a lot. Words like consciousness, and trauma, and stuff like that. And they get thrown around way too much. But this, in the truest sense of the word, we are severely desensitized to bloodshed and aggression. Now, imagine you were walking down that street and you walked by that bar and you saw lovemaking happening on that TV. If you saw a naked man and a naked woman creating life on that TV, your head would swivel back to that TV faster than anything. In fact, there'd probably be a group of people sitting outside that restaurant saying, "What the hell do they have on TV? What do they think they're doing? Who on earth, call the police, the goddamn sickos, what the hell?"
Yeah.
Now, do you see, and I know that's kind of like a juvenile kindergarten demonstration, but can you see the magnitude of that type of that conditioning?
Yeah, I do. It's in a sense like just normalizing violence.
Now, I'd like to tell you here now why the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction. Now, all aspects of military life, killing, ranks, tactics, weapons, all of it, every single conceivable aspect of warfare has to do and has its direct origin in lovemaking. Either having sex, the production of children, child rearing, or everything having to do with bringing about healthy, beautiful, strong, smart children. This was the number one preoccupation of every single nation on the planet prior to the fall of man and ice times. Okay. Now, it's actually probably our deviation from this system that has brought about much of the suffering that we have reaped since then. And I'll tell you why. Every planet on the planet, every country on the planet today spends the vast amount of its resources preparing to kill people in hypothetical wars, right? That has been
to defend, but yeah,
there's no such thing as you can't defend anything with a missile. You're shooting a missile at somebody. There's but I get what you mean. I get what you mean. So
that's the excuse, is we need to protect our nation. So they make it sound defensive when it's not defensive. And
what's your rating on this show? Our
what
rating
show?
On
this show? We go against the grain. I mean, I don't expect you to. I don't expect us to do any live love making together on the show, but most everything else seems to be a go.
All right. Well, I'll scrap that and then we'll go to Plan B. But so
I'll come down to Palm Beach and yeah, we can film some really interesting content, Mr. Longo.
Oh man. But so here, all military words having to do with the military. What is the military? It is a litter mill. A litter mill. A mill of a litter. It is a mill bringing about litters of children. This is the origin of all military tactics, weaponry, terminology, all of it, bar none, in every language on the planet. In fact, if you want to talk about Greek history in America, what are some of the most ancient Greek words still retained by Native Americans? It's military terms, because military terms remain the same largely, generation to generation. Many things will get reinterpreted, but you're never going to say, captain, lieutenant, private. All these things are fixed in many languages, terms like that. And I'm going to explain why. We had on this planet at one time what was called the fertilitary system. Fertilitary. It was a fertile, love-creating, life-creating system. And this was done on Viking ships. This was spread around the world by Vikings, Finnish people, the Phoenicians, before they became merchants. Before they were merchants, they were vendors. And vendors does not mean the same thing as a merchant. And you'll see this.
Okay.
Here. So what you have happening, answer it.
Yeah, I am. Hello.
Talk to my girlfriend.
You're good. I assumed.
So, fertilitarian system, blah, blah, blah. We'll just get right down to it. Now, you'll see for yourself. All weaponry, tactics, armor, everything like I said. And here we go. So, and some of this is kind of crude. So this is not a fetish of mine, but you're gonna see as this develops, you'll get a clear picture of how this works, how it's not disgusting imagery. It's certainly not in the alternative, because what's the alternative? Bloodshed, that all these words have their origin in the desire for one human to kill another human. I do not believe that to be true. I do not believe any country initially dedicated all of their resources to the killing of life. It was always done for the creation of life. It was only after the fall of man that we got flipped on our head and started killing and taking blood out of other people. So, and this coincides directly with your vegetarianism. Okay. In a fruitarian, vegetarian world, people were less violent, right?
Okay.
Well, let's just get down to it. Private. Okay. Bye-bye. Drive safe.
So
Uber?
sweet.
Okay.
Look at romantic Dr. Longo over there.
So, private. If you're a private, what are you really, Chris? Privates, right? You're private. Private first class. Those are your private parts. This is your privates. Now, if you are a foot, what's a private? A private and the low-level ranks are foot soldiers, right? foot soldiers. They don't get much of the glory, do they, all the time? They have to be really impressive to get glory as a foot soldier, right?
Right.
It's usually some of the commanders, officers who get a little bit more of the glory, but you'll see where we're going with this.
Okay.
Well,
I'm following along.
private. It's your private parts. The foot soldier. What is a foot soldier? A foot soldier, if you know, Chris, when a child is born, what do they do with the sole of the foot of that child? They
Take
dye
an
it.
imprint of it.
They dye the sole of the foot, and they take an imprint of that, and it's usually on the birth certificate or comes with the birth certificate. That is your foot sole dyer. This is the man whose job it is in the system to dye the soles of the feet. And admittedly, this is not a very high up rank. This is something you'd be doing to kind of prove your worth, right? A low level. Dyeing, you're not doing the lovemaking, you're not doing the creating, right? So you'll see. Lance corporal. Step up from there. The lance corporal. What does the word lance mean? Lance is a spear.
Yeah, it can be very phallic oriented.
Lance is a spear. Corporal means having to do with the body or flesh. Corporal means. So lance corporal is a fancy way of saying meat spear.
Flesh sword.
Flesh sword. There you go. Now,
Flesh sword,
what is a sergeant? Sergeant. A sergeant is someone who's donating his genes. A sergeant. Sergeant. He may also be a surrogate. A surrogate, a donator of genes, a sir, and we're going to get to the word sir later on. Well, a staff, I think if that's a little bit of a stretch for you, then I think staff sergeant might be a little bit less ambiguous. Staff sergeant, right? Then you have your officer, and officers are people who are offering into this system. They're not taking life, they're offering life. But that's not an important one. Here's an important one. Lieutenant. A lieutenant. Now, some of these activities we're describing, they're not exactly living room activities, right? They're not exactly kitchen activities. But perhaps it's something you would do in a loo, right?
Bathroom?
Some of these, yes.
I mean, that's when I think about a loo, I gotta take a whiz in the loo.
There you go. Loo means bathroom. So if you're a lieutenant, you're tending the loo, or you're using the loo. A lieutenant, a tenant of a loo. So this is activity going on in the bathroom or a bathhouse, so to speak. And that's kind of where historically where you see much child rearing. Children were not born in hospitals. They were typically born in the most environment that you could clean the best and was warm, and that would be the communal bathhouse. So the bathhouse of the community was typically where children would be. But and go ask anyone in Europe. The vast majority of children in medieval times, up until 1500s, 1700s, even in much of Europe, were born in bathhouses. So this is your lieutenant, right? Someone who's tending the loo. You have a captain. You have a commander. Commander. If you're a firemander, that means you deal with water. Sorry, fire. If you're a watermander or a watermancer, that means you deal with water. You're like a waterbender. Well, not to be crude, but if you're a commander, what is your specialty, right? Now, admiral.
But now, are you saying that these translate in other languages? Because I don't speak other languages.
Finnish.
So you're saying
yes, they do. All Northern European languages have these precise correlations.
Okay.
All, especially Finnish. But commander. But English language is a special language. It's a master key. People forget.
Well, you said it's like an angelic language, right? Which I find to be interesting.
It absolutely is. It's an angular, angelic, angles. But, well, here's another one. If you're an admiral, this is someone who's admiring something, right? If you're an admiral, Your job is to judge and admire the beauty of something. If you're a rear admiral, what are you admiring?
The rear?
If you're a vice admiral, what are you admiring?
What is a vice?
Well, that would be the front, the vice.
Okay.
Vice,
Then
vices,
you're
like
front
human
admirer.
vice, or a vice grip. Like if someone catches you between their legs, they've got you in a vice grip, right? So this is someone whose job it is high up in the system, whose job it is to judge the health and the beauty of the people doing the lovemaking, so that only healthy, strong, smart children are being brought about into society. Whereas today, we put all of our resources to killing all the healthiest, tallest, strongest, smartest people that go out into warfare, right? Bravest people willing to die for their country, and then they all shoot each other's heads off, and come back with missing arms and fucked up in the head, and well, there goes a generation of good, strong, beautiful, hardworking men, right? So you see how the system has completely gone the other direction, and we
Completely
have
opposite.
suffered tremendously. A vice admiral, rear admiral. What's a navy? Why do you need a navy as in addition to an army? Well, many women prefer water births. Water births. And this is why you might have a birth canal. Okay. The word nautical has to do with nativity, to be born. To be born, your birth, a ship is birthed, right? You birth a ship. All these.
So
parallels.
you're even equating the sexual, like kind of the sexualness of the words to maritime, the way
As
the
well,
water.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Now, let me tell you, those are just the ranks. Those are just ranks of one list of Wikipedia that I went down. Let's talk about edged weaponry. All edged weaponry in historic depictions has depicted one thing. There's only one battle on this planet that matters. Okay? And you, Chris, you won it. You won the battle, the greatest battle that there's ever been. I won the battle.
Surviving coming out of your mother?
Well, yes. You penetrated the egg first. You beat out the competition. This was the one battle that matters to mankind. And in fact, you're leaving? Okay. Love you. Bye-bye. So, this is your one battle that mankind ever needs to fight. Ever. And we have gone so wrong because do you know why? Life has become so easy, and we've become so out of touch with this system that we now cater to the weakest among us, and we cater our civilization to those sperms who never should have made it to an egg. And when you do that, this impulse to fight is not satiated because all these little sperms have made it to their destination without having to fight. So when they come into existence, there's this overwhelming aggression. There's a sense of I don't belong here. Who am I? Why am I? Because, and I'm not saying that we should try to fix anything or that the solution to this is to remove people from society. Not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm saying that humanity needs to bring back a respect, an emphasis, and a desire for beauty. That beauty matters. Intelligence matters, of course. The intelligence without beauty is just extra ugly. Extra ugly. So we need beautiful and intelligent and strong. And we should not settle for any less. We cannot cater our society to weaklings. And maybe in some people's eyes, I am a weakling. And that's okay, because the bar needs to ever be set higher. It can't. You know what I mean? We have a system today where the bar is set so low. And as I said, the people who cross that bar and can do 200 push-ups and are 6'3", 140 IQ, they're in the Navy SEALs. You get what I mean? And they're killing people and they're ruining, God bless them. God bless Navy SEALs and whatever they do.
Yeah.
But the trauma, my cousin's a Navy SEAL. The trauma, the damage, the war fighting I'm not saying it's bad. God, God bless America. If you fuck with America, you're going to get stomped out of existence, and that's how it should be. I think that's America's destiny. But the main thing we've gone wrong is we have forgotten beauty. We have catered to our weaklings. So now we're being ruled by runts. And these runts, we're being ruled by runts. Look at Bill Gates. Tell me he's not a runt. Look at Jeffrey Nader. Tell me he's not a runt. Look at, these people. We're being ruled by people that should have never made it past that first battle. Never should have made it past that war. Because we live in Valhalla, Chris. We live in Eden. We live in the afterlife. We live in heaven. We are all warriors. Do you know why children grow up boys are so infatuated with
Guns
war
and
fighting?
war.
Yeah, because they want to go back and win that battle fair and square. Because they are guilty. Okay? Because
of being the sperm that penetrated the egg, they're guilty of being the winner.
Yes, because the bar has been set so low that the strong sperm are not as strong as they have been before. The weak ones are if you've ever seen, they even have videos of like sperms swimming towards the egg in like the 1980s, and it was like, they're like heat-seeking missiles. And then today it's like, my God, you're lucky if like 3 of them make it to the end of the hallway. So yes, there's many things going on, but also, I don't want to make it like a eugenics thing. I'm not a eugenicist, far from it, but the main thing is that after, there's also the secondary process where if a runt makes it to birth, that society would treat him as a runt. And I'm not saying push him out into the woods or kill him or like the Spartans would. I'm saying don't celebrate the runt. Don't cater the entire society to the needs of the runt. And that's exactly what we have going on today. The more that we cater to the runts, the more runts will be brought about in society. And I've never
That's
used
an interesting way of putting it, because I mean, I get what you're saying, but it makes me even wonder, like, so if you don't shun the runt, but you don't celebrate the runt, so you don't let the runt procreate so that it makes more runts, and you allow for the procreation to be by the people that would produce better results, which is kind of unfair, because who chooses that? I mean, I know that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, see, that's what you're talking about right there, is the fear that we all have that we wouldn't be selected to be the one that's beautiful. However, if I were to expound on this system a little bit more, this was actually, we get our caste system of caste,
like different classes.
Classism actually comes from this misunderstanding, whereas kind of as you just put it rather well, this may be used as a justification for certain activities. Well, what I'm saying is this is actually how you elevate classes, how you rise above a caste. You would be, in this ancient system, you would be born into a caste, into a class. But from there, due to your beauty, your intelligence, your strength, or your health, so all those things, you didn't have to be the most beautiful, but if you have enough to contribute to the general society, health, beauty, strength, etc., those qualities were treated like gold. Those were so in demand. That's what I mean, is we think we're doing good today because life has become easier and that bar has been set lower. But, people always ask me, who was the most advanced society that's ever been? Who's the most advanced civilization? Was there advanced civilization? And to me, advanced civilization means not littering. You know what I mean? This is not advanced. This is irresponsible, because this is going to be sitting around 200 years from now, 300 years from now. This is irresponsible. So even however many needs this may grant me, at what cost? And the most advanced society on the planet would have been most in tune, most on top of that cost. Most
That was being conducive to its environment and its surroundings to keep
Yeah.
it going. Like, because you know, like some people talk about leaving the earth better than it was given to us. So
Mhm.
there was a time, and I think that that saying goes back a long time, because I think that there was a society that was all for the betterment of everything.
Yes. Now, the same culture that I'm describing, which was centered in Helsinki, Finland. Helsinki, Finland was the capital city of the pagan planet. And this is why Florida is special too, because the Gulf Stream goes from Finland to Florida, right? And I forgot what I was going to say. And I also said I was going to pull up some pictures, but I haven't been pulling up any pictures.
It's all right. I mean, the conversation. I mean, I think things need to happen the way they happen.
Okay,
So maybe we can get together again in a couple more weeks.
for
Not
sure.
put some more time in between and try to dig more into this the whole native Moorish, because I know we really kind of just briefly touched on those things. But I think you kind of gave a really good explanation and kind of filled in some things for me as far as like having a better understanding.
Sure. Now, I do have a good map that I'd like to show you. Plenty to say about this map.
Okay.
Here, let me share a different screen.
No problem.
Here we go.
Okay.
So that's Tartaria. That's not what we want to look at.
The Griffin.
And thanks for having me on, man.
Oh no, thanks for the
good
conversation.
chat.
Thank
Good
you.
chat.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And that's why I'm saying maybe we can just shoot for 2 weeks from today and be able to continue that way. I know because you got a lot going on
Sure.
and it kind of gives a little time in between.
Yeah, we can make it a monthly thing too if you want.
Okay.
But
I don't want to wait too long in between this conversation because I want to try to keep as much of this fresh in my head as I possibly can for the next time we talk.
Yeah. Well, this, I've this kind of helps explain. Let me see what I'm trying to pull up.
It was a map. You were looking for a map.
Yes. So here we go. I found it.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see that?
I can. If you can enlarge it, that'd be great. I'll go full screen with it.
I gotcha. So this is printed by, just to see the whole thing for a second. This was printed by Life magazine in 1916, February 10th, right? See that up here in the corner.
I see that. Yep.
February 10th, 1916. Okay. World War I was just firing up, and there was a lot of pressure on America to enter that war. Okay. Now, if you do like old world research like me and Analog Ben from Waking Up with Analog, who I collaborate with a lot, he and I agreed that it's really World War I is where many of this old world information, articles, was really stomped out and swept under the rug. As far as the articles, the linguistics, just you could open your newspaper, your morning newspaper, before World War I and the stock market collapse of 1929. Prior to those periods, you could open your newspaper and read, did the ancient Greeks come to America? And in the main name brand publications, you could see this same type of stuff you're getting on YouTube today. Did Chinese come from Guatemala? Did the Turks make it to America? Well, I'm going to show you. That all kind of went away around World War I. And it's no coincidence. In World War I, as America's getting pushed into World War I, into joining World War I. You have Life magazine printing this map that was purposed to scare Americans into joining World War I to fight for the Allies and to swing the war in the Allies' favor. So this is kind of
Propaganda.
It's propaganda, but it's
basically saying this is what would happen if America just doesn't get involved.
Exactly. But it's also satirical. So some of these names are meant to be like humorous. You know, it's almost like an episode of South Park. Like, hey, better join World War I.
What does it say? Japanica?
Yeah.
So that's pretty lame there. So somebody could have done a better job with the creation of something for Japan.
Yes. Now I'll tell you,
Japanopolis.
Some of them are corny, but some of them are. For these people to have known this, they would have had to have had a deep understanding of the place names of America, which whoever made this clearly did. But let's just look at Florida for a sec, or just zoom out for a sec first, and I'll give you an overview of what is getting given to who. So the majority of the United States outright is being given to Russia, Prussia, or Germany, and the German forces, German-speaking peoples, Austro-Hungary, whoever this is. You have New Prussia being the vast majority of the United States. Well, is it any coincidence that we have Mennonites, Amish, Mennonites, Dutch,
Quakers.
German, Dutch-speaking, Quakers too, German and Dutch-speaking people predominantly in Middle America. So on top of that, you have Florida being distinctly given to the Turks, to the Ottomans. So why is it that Florida, compared to all the rest of the United States, is being allocated to the Turks? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Florida was inhabited by the Turks. In 1760s, you had Turkish immigrants, Greeks, Ottomans, right there, Mexico being Ottomangian language, home of the Ottomangian languages.
So this is related to the Moors?
Yes, the Turks, the Ottomans.
I mean, you could replace the Turconia with Moronia, and it would still be the same thing.
The Turkish flag is almost identical to the Muskogee flag, which is the Seminoles and the Creeks. And then the Creeks wear fezzes, Greeks wear fezzes, Creeks wear fezzes, and Turks wear fezzes. And do you know where the word Turks and Caicos comes from? Turks and Caicos is down here, right, in the Caribbean. Turks and Caicos comes from a cactus that has a red tip at the top, like a red fez. So they called these Turks and Caicos. Now I don't know if I'm believing that.
I didn't know Greek people wore fezzes. I knew like people from Morocco and stuff like that would wear fezzes.
Well, the Moors took over. They weren't going by the name Moor, but Moors and Islamic peoples, even the Phoenicians took over parts of Greece, Crete, Minoa, all the way to Spain. The Balearic Islands is where those people I was showing you earlier were from. But yeah, Turk is Greek. Turk you can think of as Muslim mixed with Greek. That's what Turkish or Ottoman kind of represents. Then you have, so this map was very telling because Constantinople Junction, they placed Constantinople in Tampa Bay. Why would you place Constantinople in Tampa Bay? Well, let me show you this. Well, what if I told you we have Turkish architecture in Tampa Bay? In 1890, 1887, you had Turkish architecture, Turkish palaces. Yes, sir.
Turkish palaces, which would go back to what you're saying is the Moorish architecture that has kind of like the Arabic-looking tops.
Yep, here.
Like kind of like almost castle-like. It has like a I don't know what you call it. Just a tall, like a tall singular kind of location, but the top of it has the kind of Arabic looking thing that you would see, what we would associate mainly.
It's called
Why was Southern California given to the Australians though? What was that for? Was that just to get? I
you
didn't
know,
know.
California barely exists in my mind, so I don't really know, but I'm sure there's equally deep, profound connections over there. If someone was a little bit more invested in California history, they could probably chase down those avenues, those rabbit holes, but I'm not so interested. But I've got here, if you could pull up my screen, I've got a picture of Tampa Bay. So the features you were describing are called minarets.
Can you pull up a bigger or go to images?
Yeah. Here.
Because I can see the top of what you're talking about.
Yeah, sorry. Here we go.
It's just real small. And that's called the Tampa Bay Hotel.
Yep, this was built by Henry Plant.
When did they say that was built?
1887.
Okay, is that when you think it was actually built?
Fuck no.
Okay.
This thing is magnificent, glorious. Yeah. This is actually.
Well, what is their explanation for this shit being there? Because it's in plain sight. People can see it. It's like taking a piece of
yeah, exactly.
The Middle East and just throwing it right there in Florida for a minute. And it's like, why? How did this get there?
Yes, you're exactly right. Well, Florida was the starting place of the United States. So why, if do you think we've been given the whole story on American history? It only makes sense that from the inception, you would have had.
Is there any sort of connection? Because I know you've covered the Tartary and Tartaria stuff. Is there any sort of connection with the Tartarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire?
Yes, they were largely covering much of the same territory.
So it's kind of wiping out a lot of that history, and again, kind of making the Romans seem a lot more powerful than they actually are in reality.
Yes, and what were the two biggest changes that World War I brought about? The disappearance of the last Tartarian descended Tartar nobility, who were the Romanovs, and then you have the complete collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that you find much of the same architecture in both? And it cannot be simply attributed to exactly. And then you have a St. Petersburg. So here, Tampa Bay, where I'm showing you, Tampa Bay, right? You can see, where Tampa Bay is, right? Let's look at Tampa Bay map.
Got a couple friends out there. A really good friend out in Tampa Bay.
So this is Tampa Bay. Okay. Tampa Bay. Let's see if this is a good picture. No, it's not. Is that a good picture? Can you see this big enough?
I can see it. Yeah, if you can enlarge it, that'd be great. But I can see it.
So
you have Clearwater on the left.
This is Tampa Bay.
St. Petersburg on the bottom.
St. Petersburg. Yes.
Yeah,
so
St. Petersburg.
Well, you have St. Petersburg, Russia, and St. Petersburg, Florida.
And if you tell somebody I'm going to St. Petersburg, most people are going to, for whatever reason, assume you're going to Russia. So yeah, where is that connection? Because it doesn't seem like the Ottoman Empire. Well, I guess we do think Tartary would have been somewhere in the Russian area. So maybe that is where the connection comes in.
The Byzantine is the connection. Byzantine is Greek, Russian, a lot of Eastern Europe. A lot of what today is Islamic territory or Muslim practicing land. Back then, I'm going to be covering the Byzantines too. That's like my brother's very heavy into the Byzantines. But
okay,
this land here is called Pinellas County. Pinellas County is this peninsula on the left of Tampa Bay. So you have that same Moorish architecture, both sides of the Atlantic, from Gulf Stream to Gulf Stream. But then also, what was I just going to say? Okay, here. I've got something. Really hope it's in here.
Like an image you have of yours?
Yeah, I might have to send it to myself because it's worth showing. It's Pinellas County, Florida.
Does that word come from peninsula?
Well, kind of, because penis, peninsula, pineal gland, it's all the same. Pine tree, pine cone,
I never
pineapple.
put peninsula
Fin-
with penis together.
Oh, how could you not? It's the same thing.
What- Yeah, I just
Florida
don't
is-
think of it like that, man. It's interesting though. It's
Mhm.
yeah, it's fucking
Well,
interesting.
I'm sure you've thought it looked like a gun before, haven't you? That Ford looks like a gun, right?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that telling? That we can see the gun and things, but we can't see the cock. Can't see the creation of it, but you see the destruction, right?
Yeah, I guess that goes back to our conditioning.
So I'm gonna send this to myself so I can show it to you. It's a picture of Pinellas County, Florida, or a map of Pinellas County, Florida.
You're sending it to me
No, I'm gonna send it to myself so I can show
so you can screen share it.
Yeah, it's on my iPad. Send
Yeah,
it to
so
myself.
because you have Apple stuff, you can easily transfer an image from your iPad to your computer.
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Is that really not a thing on non-Apple products?
I guess you can connect things up, but Apple's just kind of designed for that. It's almost like you can network your stuff together without a bunch of cords.
Yeah, I don't do the cloud stuff. I don't like the cloud. I think that's pretty gay. But but I do airdrop stuff back and forth.
Well, while
I've
you're
also
looking
got
at it, I was going to remind people to make sure that they're checking out that video it's premiering tonight, but by the time you guys watch this video, the hidden Greek history of Florida and ancient America is a video that kind of expands a little bit on this information you guys can check out.
Yes.
Did you get it?
Yes.
Pinellas County map? Penis County map?
Well, kind of. You'll see. Man. Okay, well, I got one picture. We'll pull that up. Then I've got another video that's cool that I did not put in my Greek video, so it'd be cool to show here because I omitted it from my Greek video because the Greek video is 5 hours long, by the way. So don't think you're just gonna pop in tonight and get a nice little tune in for an hour or so. But
it's a smoke session.
So, my computer was on his last leg trying to give birth to that 27.
Oh, he got disconnected. So hopefully he'll reconnect here in a minute and everything will be good. And we'll just we'll wait for him to reconnect. And then I'll edit this part out. And there he is.
Yeah, I got kicked for a sec.
I see that. Did you press the wrong button?
Yeah, I like Apple. You can I like triple swiped to the left instead of double swiping. So I like backed out.
I'll just edit that out for the edit. You're just making me work harder. It's all right.
No, leave it in. Give some nuance to the call it say Illuminati. Oh my God, Dr. Longo. Dr. Longo abducted live on stream.
They came and got you.
So
just end the video with that. Just don't even let people see the rest of this.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, great. So you're pulling up if I'm Pinellas County. I'm not sure if you'll.
Okay, here we go. I got something. Yeah, I got something right here. I'm sorry, man. I'm so bad at my computer.
You're all right.
This is like a 2017 MacBook Air.
Yeah, you definitely got to upgrade. They've done some crazy things with the Macs with these M1 processors now.
Yeah,
you make your editing game that much smoother.
Dude, my Mac served in Vietnam. This thing's not going anywhere. So here we go. Okay, finally got it up. And it's Google Chrome, so cut me some slack here. Fucking Google Chrome with the StreamYard is tough. But there we go. Awesome. So you tell me if I'm schizophrenic, but that is the pineal gland being represented in Pinellas County, Florida, which was originally called Pinal County, Pinal County, Pinal. Then it was Americanized into Pinellas County. Well, yes, it means pine, so, land of pines. But in the Bible, God says that it was the land of Peniel, right? This was part of the promised land, or a promised land, or a land of promise was the land of Peniel, right? Land of milk and honey. So here, let's zoom in on this.
Scientologists, Mormons, and even Amish people vacation here. So they go are you talking about Pinellas County?
Yes, sir. Clearwater, Florida is where Scientology owns a majority of the city of Clearwater, Florida. That's no joke. They own over 50% of the city.
But it was named this because it has a similarity in the way that the scientific image looks.
No, I put this together. I'm the only person who is crazy enough to have, considered putting these two pictures together based off of the similarity of the name. So Florida is the navel chakra of the planet. The pineal gland and the third eye are up near the North Pole. The pineal gland and the navel chakra within the body are connected, especially with a direct energy pathway. Whereas all the other chakras, every chakra has a pair. Well, there's 7, but your crown chakra and your root chakra are connected via a direct pathway. Your third eye chakra and your navel chakra, so the one in the sex chakra, right? The womb, the phallus, that chakra, just above your belly button, just below your belly button, has a direct link with the pineal gland. So it's no coincidence that we go right. What we're looking at right here is St. Petersburg, Florida, right here. St. Petersburg up in the Gulf of Finland, that is the third eye chakra of the planet. Well, the Gulf Stream ties the two of these together, these two places, perfectly. And you go Gulf to Gulf, Gulf of Finland to Gulf of Florida, or the Gulf of Mexico. And then you go from St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg. Well, St. Peter means third eye. Peter is Jupiter, the third eye chakra, as we already talked about. Crown, Saturn rules the crown. This is where the word crown comes from, or Kronos. Kronos means Saturn. Cronus. Kronos is where we get the word corona, or crown. This is the crown chakra. This is why bad kings wear the crown on the top of their head. A good king, a fair king, wears his crown across his forehead, because this is the source of his royalty, his divinity, his intuition. This is intuition. This is dominance, and this is good. This does teach you something, but that is the Saturn chakra. That is ruling over top of people. This is why Jewish people wear the yarmulke, because they worship on Saturn's day. Yarmulke. Well, have you ever seen a picture of Saturn? Saturn's wearing a yarmulke. It has a perfectly hexagonal North Pole. Saturn.
That's interesting that you compare that, though. Okay, so cool.
Saturn Day. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a reason Christians worship on Thursday, historically, not today. They worship on Sunday, but that's the Son of God. That's the Son of God. Sun in the sky, Sunday. Islamic people worship Isis. They tell you that themselves. Islam. It's Islam, right? ISIS. That's the number one corporation in the Middle East. Is ISIS, right? Getting the most job done, making the most money of anyone over there. That's
Seems
ISIS.
like it.
Yep. So that's Isis. That's the primary goddess of their religion, and they're not doing it right. Obviously, they're using that name terribly, and it's all fake and it's all created in a Hollywood basement. But beyond the point, you have, I forget what we were talking about, but Saturn has a crown on his north pole, and that is why people who worship Saturn they smother their own crown chakra. They smother their own crown chakra in submittance, in servitude, in submission.
Okay. That makes sense.
Whereas a good king, watch Lord of the Rings, watch any elf, fair king, a good, holy king, is wearing a thin band across the forehead, because this is the seat of power and divinity and consciousness, not up here, right? So, you know what I mean? Some people just want to be on top of everything rather than understanding or seeing through, seeing the purpose. So that's kind of the philosophy behind it. Blah, blah, blah. Why are we seeing the pineal gland represented on Florida, which is actually the navel chakra of the planet? Well, it's because, as I just explained, the navel chakra and the third eye chakra have a special connection between the two, a direct pathway within the body. On the globe, on the planet, whatever model you're on, flat, round, doesn't matter. This is also represented by the Gulf Stream extending from Finland, the Finnish line. Okay, Finland's the finish line. Finnish. If you're Finnish, this is the finale. This is Finis. This is Elfin. This is the pinnacle. The word pin is the same word as fin, to be at the top. Just like, do you know what a finial is? A finial is what's at the tippy top of a steeple or a minaret. It's the tippy top, the finale. The finial is the tippy top decorative thing at the top of a tower.
So the Gulf of Mexico, like the way that the Gulf Stream goes, it actually flows all the way to the Finnish, the Gulf of, or the Finnish, I don't know what the hell it's called.
Yes, sir. Gulf of Finland. Yes, it does.
So okay, wow, that's pretty.
It does. And then,
interesting.
in fact, places like England, Iceland, they would be ice cubes if it were not for the Gulf Stream that keeps those islands protected from the
freezing over
cold waters of the Atlantic. If I have an article that explains, if the Gulf Stream were to divert just a degree longitudinally or latitudinally away from Iceland, Iceland would turn back into an ice cube, right? In a matter of days, because all that warmth, that area, comes from the Gulf Stream, warm waters that originate in the Gulf of Mexico. So that is why you have I today. So you see down here on this map, this is Pinellas County.
Right, where the red dot is, or the redness is.
This is Pinellas. Orange. That's Tampa Bay, is the water. The peninsula guarding Tampa Bay is Pinellas County. Pinellas County is where we find the most, or Pasco County, just right next door here. Tampa Bay, still Tampa Bay. You have the largest amount of Greek people outside of Greece. Highest concentration. Greeks in Tarpon Springs, Florida. On the other coast of Florida, you have the location where the Gulf Stream comes closest to land, comes closest to the mainland. That is,
it kind of circles around Florida, the Gulf Stream.
Yeah, it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. It comes down across the east coast of America, down, through the states of Florida into the Gulf of Mexico. But over here is where it comes closest to the mainland. And where it comes closest to the mainland is uncoincidentally where you find the most Finnish city outside of Finland. Why? Because the Finnish, like salmon, have returned to their spawning grounds. The Finnish come back to these ancestral vacation sites. And I'm in Lake Worth, Florida today. Lake Worth, Florida, with the most Finnish people outside of Finland, highest concentration.
In Lake Worth?
Lake Worth, Florida, yes, sir.
Okay. And then Tarpon Springs is where you're saying it has a high Greek
the most Greek city
concentration.
Most Greek city in America and highest concentration of Greek people outside of Greece, outside of Eurasia. So there you go. It's all right here. Well, let's look at this a little bit. I hope that's enough. Blah,
that definitely does explain. It gives me something to think about for sure.
Because the pineal pin, anywhere you see the word pin, you can replace with fin. So pineal is finial. This is the final gland. This is the final, test. You're unlocking your Jesus chakra, your Christ consciousness. This is your finish line, the final. So pineal is the same meaning. It means to be at the tippy top or the very end. And this is the tippy top, the very end of the cerebrospinal system. The cerebrospinal system also could probably be symbolized by the Gulf Stream that sends a highly energetic amount of energized water from one part of the planet to another. And where it goes, it gives life. So Iceland, capable of hosting life solely due to the Gulf Stream. Just like places like Finland stay thawed out during the winter, whereas other places in the Baltic will freeze over entirely. Whereas Helsinki, Finland, and the islands in that area stay warmer than they should, and it's actually pretty anomalous. They don't know
because of the Gulf Stream.
The Gulf Stream is an intelligent stream of water that goes to North Europe and brings this. Well, I want to break down this picture here so people don't think I'm nuts. Here we have Pinellas County on the left, and you have the pineal gland on the right. Now, what drew me to this was the similarity between the name. And it wasn't until I flipped the map 90 degrees. Here's what you're looking at. Down here, this is Florida.
Right.
This is Pinellas County. This is the peninsula that is Pinellas County, guarding Tampa Bay, right here. Well, all I did was rotate it 90 degrees as if you were approaching Florida from the Atlantic, how you would view it in a bird's eye view. And when we look at it that way, it is almost precisely the pineal gland. And I'll show you how. And now, granted, it's not precise because this is just one brain from one cross section from one picture of a brain that was just one shape. And maybe someone else's brain looks even more like Pinellas County. Someone else's might look less like Pinellas, but this one looks pretty damn close. And most of them do. If you look up cross section of the pineal, hypothalamus, pineal, and pituitary gland, this is what you'll see. And let's get into it. Up here, you have this peninsular mass on top that juts out to the left. And from there, you have curves down and it terminates at a tip right here. Okay. Right here, we have the same thing. And the angle of curve over the top here is largely the same. Right. Now, there, as you come around this tip here, we come up into an empty zone. This is water. So on the left here, this is Tampa Bay. This is the bay jutting into, this is the water cutting into the bay. So up into here is empty space. So let's compare this empty space with this empty space. Now, it doesn't come as deep into the hypothalamus as it does at Tampa Bay.
Right.
But remember, this is just one cross section. Now, when you observe the angle at which this little divot comes up, you'll see this angle is almost precise. The angle, the arching up of this negative space right here, almost precise. Now, the dead giveaway is the optic chiasm, hypophysis, however you call this, pituitary gland, is this structure right here. Now, to me, this is the most compelling factor. You have this piece jutting out, a peninsula within a peninsula or underneath a peninsula, jutting out. Underneath it, additional negative space. So the negative space above, around, and then underneath. You have this represented precisely in the pituitary gland as well, coming up underneath this little ball sack looking thing, up into this negative space here, which is almost precise to the negative space on Tampa Bay. Now,
I mean, that's pretty interesting because, I mean, I wouldn't think that they would have any sort of science to be able to look inside of a person's brain to be able to figure out and name this like they did. But obviously, I mean, there must be some sort of connection. It just can't be completely coincidental, especially when you're kind of comparing it to St. Petersburg and Helsinki kind of being, you know, the chakra aspects. That's fucking crazy, dude.
When you understand, you want to know the nail in the coffin, Chris? This area that I'm showing you right here, not only does it have the largest amount of Greek people, this is the lightning capital of the United States, this area that you're looking at.
Meaning that's where the most amount of lightning strikes?
Yes, sir.
Lightning. So like there's an attraction there.
Lightning cat. Yes, sir. And then they that same area, they say that there's long been a legend that that area is protected from hurricanes.
Well, I mean, this is some fascinating stuff, man. I know when we originally talked about recording, we were going to do like an hour and a half, and we're just a little over 2 hours. I think this might be a good spot for us to wrap up. But I took some notes because I have notes about the P and the letters P and F and the letters G and C, and then kind of going into because the GC would go with the Greek thing, and when you mentioned pineal and then like final and finish, that would be the P and the F. So when it comes to etymology, man, I mean, a lot of this shit is blowing me away, but I think I've got a good place for us to pick up.
Here, I've got 2 more, if you could.
Yeah.
I had a short, it's less than a minute, 40-second video that did not make the cut for my Greek video, but I would like to show people.
So what was that?
I mean, it was a semi-satirical. It's like a meme.
What was it saying was known as the city of 7 hills, though?
Tallahassee, Florida, capital of Florida. And
is it really known as that?
Yes, sir. City of 7 hills, absolutely. And I have articles from the. It's not just the geographic similarity. I have articles from before 1900 explaining how Tallahassee was the ancient Rome of America, how it was the Athens, the Jerusalem of America. So
prior to Rome and Jerusalem, though.
I mean,
or
yes, I would say yes, but
okay. I know it's all speculation in a sense, but
yes.
Just curious. Did you have anything else that you wanted to screen share?
Just to really drill just a quick picture that I found.
I'm looking forward to diving into your 5-hour long documentary.
Oh, I can't wait. It's about to drop. But
what time? Because like how long from now?
That's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
45 minutes away from now. Okay. Yeah, yep. Cool.
You see this right here? Here you have your American Creek natives on the left, in their togas, smoking peace pipes. Then you have your Greeks on the right in their togas, both wearing toga. So it looks like they're having council, or
But which came first, the chicken or the egg, the Creek or the Greek?
the Greeks came first.
Okay, so you're saying that from the cradle of civilization, the Fertile Crescent, from the Gulf of Mexico, the Creek,
Yes.
the Native Americans that we know of as the Crete, is it Creek or Crete?
Creek with a
Creek.
with a K.
Okay.
Creek. So it's just one letter difference. Creek and Creek. Greek and Creek. It's the same word. Probably a nightmare for a listener trying to understand. But
you're saying that that this group of people, the Creeks, would have made their way to Europe in what we know of as today as
Yes,
modern
sir.
as Greece.
Yes, sir. This is substantiated genetically as well, with haplogroup X being found most in Israel, Palestine, Greece, and America. So that's anomalous. That has no explanation unless someone got in a boat and crossed the Atlantic thousands of years ago. So you don't even have to say, well, you're saying chicken and the egg. Well, I'm saying the farm came first. The farmer.
Well, yeah, when I say there's a couple of people I know that say the farmer, but
yeah, because you have Atlantis being the common ancestor of both of these cultures.
Because from Atlantis would have been prior to humans.
Human, yes. Mankind, yes.
So, and we think of the cradle of the Fertile Crescent as where humanity came from, not the species prior to humanity, which was more from what we're discussing, kind of more, they looked similar. There weren't different color variations like we see with humans.
Yeah.
It's pretty, I mean, that's pretty wild stuff, man. To even think that we would, and then I guess that would, for a hangover for the next discussion is, when we look at some of the languages of some of these native tribes here in America, there is similarity in the Hebrew language.
Yes, oh, absolutely. And Hebrew is just Greek with a mask on. Hebrew is ancient Greek with a mask on. Hebrew is ancient Greek. They were both created by the Phoenicians. Both of their alphabets were taken from the Phoenicians. Phoenicians are your transatlantic descendants of the Atlanteans. But here's a good one, and then I'll let you go. We talked about Potomac. Well, in Florida, for making this video, I did some digging of my own into the linguistics of Florida, and I found a couple, but I'll give you one. In Greek, and my friend helped me with this, my friend George. So shout out George.
Shout out George. Jorge.
He speaks Greek, so he was helping me with this.
He speaks what, Greek?
He speaks Greek. Yeah, he's Greek. And he helped me with this. He told me that I gave him a word, palatka. And he said, that's plaka. Plaka in Greek means pavement, sidewalk, boardwalk, a boardwalk, or a crossing. Well, palatka in native Floridian language, palatka means bridge or crossing. Same exact word. Creek in Greek. Same exact word to this day. Palatka in Florida. And plaka. Plaka meaning like plank, like a boardwalk.
Yeah.
Well, in Greek it's palatka. Same exact word, same meaning. That's a nail in the coffin. But there's dozens of nails in the coffins in this.
Now I've got a friend who lives in Greece who's Greek. He's born and raised in Greece. So if you ever want some different kind of insight, I'm sure, and he's a pretty open-minded guy. So I would definitely be curious about this. I wonder how many Greeks actually, if there's like any sort of mythology or oral history of the Greek people coming from.
Well, I mean, that's Atlantis. That's what Atlantis is. That Atlantis is the Greek myth of them coming from their ancestors coming from a Western ocean. That's Atlas. That's Atlantis. The Garden of Hesperides, Garden of Eden myth. It's all one and the same.
Sweet, man. Well, dude, again, man, I mean, I always appreciate your time, and I'm thankful that you had the time to go into overtime beyond what we were talking about. So I'll have
Good.
this video out in the next day or two. We're recording it on the 27th. So again, by the time this comes out, the 5 hour or 5+ hour documentary will be out on Old World Florida's YouTube channel, The Hidden Greek History of Florida and Ancient America. So be sure to check that out, as well as our first conversation together. And if you want to support what Old World Florida does and the Department of Magic of Florida, you can also join the Old World Florida Patreon channel. I love your sarcasm, man. And I in particularly love the fact that you use Miami Vice in your intro stuff. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
pretty rad.
Well, I
If
mean,
we're gonna keep it 80s.
could you imagine trying to get someone to pay attention to what you're doing and not giving them any sex, violence, drugs, or rock and roll? The
Good way
bare
of putting it.
necessity. You know why all these YouTubers? No wonder no one's watching any of their shit, because it's, you have to spice it up a little.
Give a little entertainment in it.
Yeah, and
Yeah, no, I
also
mean,
it
it
helps
can be
weed
a dry
out.
subject.
It helps weird out the weirdos, or at least the non-weirdos, I guess. It helps weed them out, because if you can't get past my intro video, I probably wouldn't want to talk to you anyway.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I had to ask you next time what the whole Department of Magic is all about, but we'll talk about that on another show. You got anything that you want to add? Any final thoughts or anything to this video before we do wrap up? Good doctor.
No, thanks for having me, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bear with me real quick. Just going to do the wrap up. So again, if you haven't watched our first conversation, be sure to check that one out. It will be linked down below. Don't break your neck over there. Look like you're going to twist your head right off. But there will be links down below for the Old World Florida YouTube channel, as well as Patreon and our first conversation. So before we wrap things up, make sure you subscribe here at Rice Against the Grain, as well as my other channel, Rice TVX. And I will leave you with this. I encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch you want to see in the Matrix. Be the change that you want to see in this world. And until next time, practice change.